Hello everyone, today I'm going to be reviewing for you Molehill Meadows, where you take up the role of moles as you tunnel around the meadow, maybe collecting worms or flowers, trying to link the ants or the flowers together, and avoiding making too many molehills. Let's jump into how the game plays, and then I'll give you some pros and cons, and just so you're aware, it was provided to me as a review copy. So in Molehill Meadows, you're going to be using the Polyomino shapes as tunnels that you're going to be digging across the meadow, trying to collect the worms, the coins as treasure, and so much more. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to take one of the sheets. They're all identical. They have the worm powers down the side, treasures and scoring of the other, and the meadow in the middle. There's some starting rocks, but at the beginning of the game you're going to turn over some tunnel cards and actually draw those on as rocks. Everyone's going to do that in their own way, and straight away everyone's sheets look a little bit different. Then, once you've added your 3 rocks onto your sheet and everyone else has done the same and everyone's ready, you're going to start the tunnelling phase. Going through 15 more tunnel cards, you're going to be drawing those tunnels on with a few restrictions, such as you can't join normally by more than 1 square onto a previously tunnelled tunnel. And everything needs to sort of connect back to either the central molehill that starts it all, or a previous tunnelled section. And I should say, any tunnel you're drawing, the shapes on those Polyomino cards, you can rotate them, flip them in any way you want. Worms collected along the way are then crossed off against one of the worm powers. We'll come on to that in a minute. And any treasures are just instantly ticked off. If you collect 1 coin, it's 1 treasure point. If you collect a 2, well, it's 2, and so on. You can also come across loose ground and flowers. The flowers, well, most of them won't matter, but they might be some of your bonus scoring objectives, of which 2 are included each game. And then there's the loose ground. These, if you do cover a sort of tunnel over them, unfortunately cause a molehill. Too many molehills are going to lose you points at the end of the game. So over the course of the game, you'll build your tunnel system out and then score for a variety of things. You'll get your treasure points that you've accumulated throughout the game. Then, for your 2 bonus cards that are in play that game, everyone's going to score those. There are 3 things that you can connect up. There's a river that's in the diagonal corners, ants from top and bottom, and also some flower patches sort of across as well. If you link those up, depending on which ones you link, you get points for those as well. Then you lose points for those molehills that you've created from those loose bits of ground. Finally, you add all those up and that's going to be your end game score. But of course we need to touch on the worm powers, because they let you break the rules and do little extra fun bits along the way. At the start of the game, you don't have access to any of the powers. You need to collect worms and cross boxes off to then be able to use the powers. For example, as I said earlier, you can't normally have a piece touching more than 1 square of an existing tunnel. However, if you've previously ticked off the 3 worms that you need to activate that power, you can use it as a one-time ability to then draw a shape basically just all next to a previously drawn tunnel. You can have as many faces of your new tunnel and an existing one touching. Another example of how you can break the rules is if you've collected 4 worms and again put them into the power, you can cross it off, and whatever the tunnel is that you're drawing, you can draw it again afterwards. The worm powers don't stop there. There's a storage, ones that just convert straight to treasure and more. So now you know how to play, what do I think of the game, and should you be adding it to your collection? Well, let's start off with, it's actually a bit of a thinkier puzzle than I'd first imagined. Most Polyomino games, when you're placing them on, you just have to be adjacent to a previously placed thing. Not being able to just put shapes next to each other is certainly something you need to get your mind round, because normally a tunnel, apart from that worm power usage, can only touch on 1 face, 1 square to 1 square. That actually is quite a thing to get your head around when placing these Polyominoes at the start of a game, and I would also definitely therefore recommend using a pencil in this game rather than a pen, so you can rub it out when you go, oh, that is touching two faces of a previous tunnel. Or I've drawn that shape slightly wrong. I need to rub it out. Certainly for your first game at least. While it is a sort of trickier puzzle, it's a fun one to get your head around, and it gives you many ways to score points, which I do really like in a game. You could be going for the treasures, ticking off those treasures that you get, but the treasures at the edges of the map, they're normally bigger. There's a 4 coin, loads of 2 coins, but they're only at the edges, so you need to get out towards them to actually pick them up. Otherwise you're just getting the 1 treasures near the middle, and that's just not as many points. You might forget the treasures entirely though and just concentrate on the bonus objectives, not scoring those negative molehills, maybe connecting the ants and the river. But I can't do the flowers this game. That's another way. Maybe a different opponent has scored their points. And there are times where you just have to say to yourself, I'm not going to be able to link the ants in this game. So don't try. Try and make sure you're maximising the points from other areas. Getting that big treasure, or, you know, taking the hit on one molehill to grab a load of the flowers that are your bonus sort of thing for this game. It's certainly really satisfying when you are placing those polyomino shapes, and when you perfectly place one, there's a real buzz to it, and you know, you get that sort of feeling where it's like, oh guys, look, I put the shape here and it works really well, and everyone's like, that's annoyingly good. That's a cool part when you get those polyomino placements just right. It feels really satisfying in games, and it certainly does in this one. However, it is the worm powers that make the game. The polyomino placement is solid, but without those little rule breaks, I think it could become repetitive. For instance, you always start from the middle. Though the rock placement that you do at the beginning changes the map up a bit, you're always starting from the middle. Which of those worm powers you're going to activate though, maybe allowing you to put bonus shapes down, or utilising just some straight as treasure, having storage, not having storage, those do change up each game and make them feel different. There's certainly some powers that I think most people will go for game after game, like being able to draw a tunnel down twice, because, well, that's an extra shape, hopefully more worms or more points that you're able to get. But it is those little bits that just break the rules or give you a bigger turn that I found really fun. If I'm being picky though, there are a couple of things that could have improved the game. It would have been really nice just to see a second sheet. I'm thinking games such as like Cartographers that are also polyomino placement games, where they have a map on one side and on the reverse is like a B-side map, just slightly different. That could have been something that added. I really like the scoring cards that are included. I think they sort of give you some direction in each game, but just to shake them up a little bit. Perhaps the bluey purple flowers score you even more, but if you touch any of the yellow flowers this game, they're negative. Or maybe just one that would shuffle up how those connecting things score. In this game, actually, if you connect the ants, it's worth even more points, just to drag you in different directions from one game to the next. It would have been nice just to see a few more things like that included, just to shake things up from one game to the next. But I still think you do have variation there because of drawing the rocks on at the start is always different. Some of the cards are put back into the box, those tunnel cards, so not always do the same shapes come up, that sort of thing. There's variety there, but I always want that little bit more. But overall, I certainly have enjoyed Molehill Meadows. It's a very pleasant polyomino placement game. Like I said, it's a little bit more thinkier than I initially thought, at least for your first play, when you realise I'm not just putting polyominoes always plopped next to each other. I have to make sure they're next to each other but not touching by much. Well, you don't want your tunnels caving in now, do you? I like the fact that actually causing the molehills loses you points. That's a thematic thing of when you see a nice meadow, oh, there's loads of molehills on it, it's ruined it a little bit. I like all of that. I like the way that there's many ways to score points, and I think you certainly could be having some fun with this one. Hopefully this has helped you know if it's going to be a game for you and if it should be added to your collection. If you've played the game at all, because it has been at some conventions, do let us know in the comments section below, and until next time, have a mole-filled good day.